Honorary degrees are bestowed upon individuals by universities as a way to recognize the outstanding accomplishments of those whom the institution admires and desires their students to emulate. It is a sacred and coveted ritual which UVI embraces. Today we will bestow this honor upon two individuals whose contributions in their lifetimes of achievement have demonstrated how to live as outstanding citizens of the world. Their individual and collective accomplishments indicate that each was sensitive enough, passionately focused, and intensely committed to be moved by the challenges of society and strong enough to confront them head on. I submit to you that these two gentlemen embody the virtues, values, and insights which made them unusually effective in their careers and worthy individuals for our students to emulate. I hereby ask Chairman Moorhead to bring forth our first honorary degree recipient, Dr. Henry Louis Gates, Jr. Professor Gates earned his MA and PhD in English literature from Clare College at the University of Cambridge. He received a BA in English language and literature, summa cum laude, from Yale University in 1973. Before joining the faculty of Harvard in 1991, he taught at Yale, Cornell, and Duke universities. Professor Gates has been awarded the 1981 MacArthur Foundation Genius Award, the 1993 George Polk Award for Social Commentary, and the 2008 Ralph Lowell Award from the Corporations for Public Broadcasting, and it is their highest award. He was named to Time's 25 Most Influential Americans list in 1997, to Ebony's Power 150 list in 2009, and to Ebony's Power 100 list in 2010 and 2012. In 2002, Dr. Gates was selected to give the Jefferson Lecture in recognition of his distinguished intellectual achievement in the humanities. In 2006, he was inducted into the Sons of the American Revolution after tracing his lineage back to John Redmond, a free African American who fought in the Revolutionary War. Professor Gates has directed the W.E.B. Du Bois Institute for African and African American Research, now the Hutchins Center, since arriving at Harvard in 1991. And during his first 15 years on campus, charted the development of African American Studies as it expanded into the Department of African and African American Studies with a full-fledged doctoral degree. Dr. Gates is also one of the 2014 recipients of the prestigious Peabody Award for his PBS series, The African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross, with Henry Louis Gates, Jr. The Peabody Award, the oldest award in broadcasting. And therefore, based on these accomplishments and many more that we do not have time to mention, we are proud to bestow upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities appertaining thereto. As was indicated, Dr. Gates has received 52 honorary degrees. However, this is the first one bestowed upon him by a university in the Caribbean. In recognition of this degree, Chairman Moorhead will vest you with a hood, and I will present you with a diploma from the University of the Virgin Islands. We are honored to have you counted now as one of our graduates. Congratulations. Due to a serious illness, Congressman Ron Dlugo was not able to join us. However, we are honored that his daughter, Ambassadress Angela Maria Dlugo, will stand in for him. And so I ask again that Chairman Moorhead will bring her to the platform to receive this honor in her father's stead. The Honorable Ron Dlugo, visionary, public servant, authentic leader of the Virgin Islands. Ron Dlugo was only 26 years old when he won his first election to the U.S. Virgin Islands legislature in 1956. Like all of his elections to local and federal offices, this was for an at-large seat from the District of St. Thomas. For the next 38 years, until his retirement from the U.S. Congress in 1994, Dlugo played a pivotal role in the social, economic, and political development of his Virgin Islands home. He worked tirelessly to expand the rights of all who live in these islands. And as his influence grew in the United States Congress, he was able to advance the interests of fellow Americans in all the insular areas and offshore Commonwealth of the United States. From 1948 to 50, he served in the U.S. Army and was program director and announcer for the Armed Forces Radio Service in Puerto Rico. After his discharge, he helped launch the St. Thomas radio station WSTA, and in 1952, he sparked the revival of Carnival, one of the Virgin Islands' greatest cultural phenomena. He was elected to 4 terms in the legislature of the U.S. Virgin Islands, interspersed by appointments as a St. Croix administrator. He was a member of the Democratic National Committee from 1959 to 1966. In 1968, Dlugo was elected to the first of 2 terms as Washington representative. In November 1972, Dlugo was elected the first congressional delegate from the U.S. Virgin Islands and served 10 terms, achieving sufficient seniority by 1989 to become chairman of the Interior Subcommittee on Insular and International Affairs. Congressman Dlugo had many accomplishments, including securing federal pensions for former VI corporate employees, inclusion of the Virgin Islands in the Federal Airport Development Aid Program, and ensured sufficient funding to complete the expansion of both airports in the Virgin Islands, expansion of Crown Bay Dock, and reconstruction of the Frederiksted Pier. He was instrumental in securing state-like treatment for the Virgin Islands under the Federal Highway System, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and other federal agencies. His other accomplishments, including passing legislation formally designating our own University of the Virgin Islands as one of the nation's historically black colleges and universities. His Alien Adjustment Act of 1982 brought resolution to the long-standing divisive issues caused by the uncertain status of temporary workers by making them and their families eligible for U.S. citizenship. In his last term, a long-held goal was realized when the then Speaker of the House, Thomas C. Foley, agreed to give congressional delegates from the territories and the District of Columbia the right to vote in the Committee of the Whole in the House during the 103rd Congress. He retired from public office in 1994. In 2003, the federal building in St. Thomas was named in his honor. He is married to Sheila Paiwanski Dlugo. Between them, they have 4 children, 7 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. Dlugo remains a friend and counselor to the people of all insular areas, and above all, to his Virgin Islands home, to which he's dedicated his career in public service. Therefore, based on these accomplishments and contributions, we are proud to bestow upon him the degree of Doctors of Law, with all of the rights, privileges, and responsibilities appertaining thereto. In recognition of this degree, Chairman Moorhead will vest his daughter with a hood, and I will present her with the diploma from the University of the Virgin Islands. We are honored to have Congressman Ron Dlugo counted among our distinguished graduates.